Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Deen Seekers episode of with Sheikh Ibrahim. Today's topic is the grave, the trials and tribulations of the grave, what we're going to go through when we die, and a bit more detail in that, inshallah. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. How are you doing, Sheikh?
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Not bad, alhamdulillah. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil
Jazakallah khair for having me again.
No problem. So, Sheikh, I want to understand what happens when now the soul leaves the body.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah wa sallama tasliman kathira amma ba'd. During this episode, it's nice that this topic has been chosen because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has emphasized this point, saying that keep in mind the destroyers of pleasure, which is death. What will shut the mouth of Bani Adam, the children of Adam, and stop them in their pleasures is death. So this is why not only the mention and remembrance of death is a virtue in itself, but also anything that has to do with death, like visiting the graveyards, washing a dead body, going to Janazah prayer, following a Janazah, obviously adhering to the boundaries of halal and haram. And we do that in every aspect of life, including death, right. The death of our loved ones or any one of the believers. So specifically, a person that is passing away, a person whose soul is being taken, is going to be taken. First of all, that person himself will have the curtains of his eyes drawn, and he will be able to see what the people around him won't be able to see. Which is not only the angel of death, as a lot of people think, but it's angel of death, other angels accompanying the angel of death, Iblis as well. Okay. Iblis will try his best at that point to make you go astray.
By not saying the kalima.
By not saying the kalima, not only not saying the kalima, but making you say something or do something or believe something just before you pass away that possibly, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala safeguard us all, Amen. And make all our efforts, all our life efforts, goals, achievements go to waste, void and unaccepted. They become like, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, haba'an manthura, ash, mountain of ash that's hit by the wind, just goes away and vanishes. So this person will have those curtains drawn and will actually wake up, will actually realize the truth of his situation. Because unfortunately, me and you and all of us, we're so deep in the pockets of shaitan that we don't think that we're gonna be the ones facing Malakul Maut. We're gonna be the ones seeing the face of the angel of death. Even though relatives, friends, family, especially during the pandemic, so many people, youngsters have passed away, that still doesn't rock us to our core. For us to realize that we're going that same path. Yeah, he's before us, his ajal, his time was up, but we're following suit.
Right.
So when you get to the end of your life, first of all, it's important to know that you can die at any age. It could be any age, you could be old, young. And a lot of people have this misconception. They will not believe you when you tell them that this young person has passed away. They'd ask why. What was the reason? What was the illness? If you say there was no reason, but how? That's not possible. It is possible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already written your whole life, your lifespan, how long your life is. So if that means that you're going to pass away as a young person, yes, you may be ill. Yes, you may have a certain outwardly reason for dying, if you're going to put it like that. But it could also be just normal causes. Just sleeping one night and then not waking up in the morning. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Allah يتوفى الأنفس حين موتها والتي لم تمت في منامها فيمسك التي قضى عليها الموت ويرسل الأخرى إلى أجل مسمى. In Surah Al-Zumar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who causes the soul to depart from the body. And He also does the same when you are sleeping.
Correct.
And for those who are sleeping, that the soul is just about lifted and taken out of your body during sleep, Allah is the one who chooses to keep that soul out of the body so you don't wake up in the morning, or to send it back and give you another chance another day.
Is that the reason when a lot of people don't wake up for Fajr as well? As Allah, like now, they don't want you to read Salah, so you need to obviously read Astaghfar and things like that.
I mean, not only Fajr Salah, but being blocked or the barrier between you and any good deeds would be as a result of your weakness, your weakness of Iman, or any sins that you may have committed that's preventing you from waking up for Fajr, for going to the masjid for Salatul Fajr,
Right.
so on and so forth. So not only Salatul Fajr, but other deeds as well, generally salawat, or them being prayed in the masjid, and other good deeds like reciting the Quran would be blocked from you. You wouldn't be able to get to them because of weakness or sins that you have committed.
Correct.
So the person would carry on his entire life, and this person, as mentioned in the hadith, he could be from the doers of good his whole life, but then towards the end he commits sins that will take him back to the wrong path and end up in the torment, in the adhab, in Jahannam, wal'iyadhu billah min dhalik. And the opposite is true. A person could be an evildoer his whole life, a Jahannami, but then towards the end of his life he changes, he repents, he turns back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ultimately leading to him getting to Jannah. So that's why that end point is the most important part of your entire life. And what you've done in your life, mostly your beliefs and your actions, would determine the path you take towards that end. It's a reflection of your whole life in a split second. You know how they say your whole life flashes before you?
Okay.
Kind of like that, where you've got that last point, those last few seconds, that's a reflection of your whole life, be it 50, 60, 70 years. So you're lying there and you're ill and you're getting close to the time when your friends and loved ones may be around you. And at that moment, you'll be able to see the angel of death, Malakul Maut, who has an appointed time with you and comes to take your soul. And the way, obviously, this is the starting point, the way he appears to you also reflects your life, your beliefs, what you stood for in your life. So he can either come as a beautiful, handsome person, greeting you and making sure you're at peace. And the way your soul will be taken is as if you just blow once or twice or a deep breath and your soul is taken with ease. And then when your soul is taken, this pure soul, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from amongst those people with
Amen.
Pure souls, your soul will start rising through the heavens and they will rise, and angels will try to carry you up because of how you smell, the pure misk smell that's coming from you, from your pure soul. They will call you by the best of names, and you will climb through the heavens until you reach Allah Azza wa Jal above the 7 heavens, and you will be written as Ahlul Jannah. You have been written, but there specifically again you'll be written regarded as Ahlul Jannah. Then you are returned back at the time in your grave to answer the questions from the 2 angels.
Will that be straight after you die? Like now when the questioning starts?
The questioning starts when you're in the qabr, when you're in your grave. All this happens in that duration where you have passed away and your body is washed,
Right.
According to the correct Islamic way, and buried as soon as possible. Janazah is prayed, then you put in the qabr, and that's when you will be asked those 3 questions. But if a person have been sinning, disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his whole life, and reaching that point, he will see the most scary, ugly face. His sight will be almost be sufficient for your soul to come out of your body. As Ibrahim alayhi salam has mentioned in narrations, when he met the angel of death, he said to the angel, "Show me your face. Show me the face that you put on when you're taking the soul of a believer." So he told him, "Okay, turn around." So he turned around, and then he made him turn around again to see him. And when he saw him, he says, "Wallahi, if there was no other reward except seeing your face, that would be sufficient." Then he said, "What face do you put when you're taking the soul of an evildoer?" So the angel again told him to turn around. He turned around, and when he turned back again, he was so shook that he actually passed out. When he woke up again, he told the angel, if there was no punishment, if there were no torments, adab, punishments at all, after passing away, except seeing your face, that is more than enough. There have been incidents as well, like our family back home, where we've heard there have been people. There was a woman a couple of years ago who was in the last moment, sakaratul maut, and they were taking her to hospital, and she was shouting and screaming, scared. "Don't let him take me, don't let him take me, he's coming, he's right there, don't let him take me." And you could see the horror in her face from what she was seeing.
And is that the same case when, like now, the Muslims who you see who have died and get a smile on their face, then that's a sign as well, isn't it? Like,
of course, you've actually seen those. There are pictures.
Yeah.
You see the believer has passed away, and there's a smile on his face, because that's the last expression. You know, even in life, when you see something that's so nice, you automatically just smile. It makes you happy and you smile. Right. Similarly, that's the last thing that believer has seen. The tranquility and those beautiful angels greeting him, honoring him, and calling him by the best of names, which of course is why he would have that smile on his face.
Right. So, like, let's take a bit back. So now, the soul has left the body, and we've gone ahead and buried the grave. Yeah. So we've gone ahead and then, like, what's the situation there? Like, when you bury them, like, do you? I've seen it somewhere where we went to a graveyard, and then there was a guy talking to the grave. Is that allowed? Telling him the questions, like, these are the questions you're going to be answered. These are the answers. I was shocked when I saw
I mean,
that.
if that worked, we would have gone to the non-believers and said, like, bro, you're going to be asked these 3 questions, so make sure I'm going to give you the answers. Yeah, just listen to me while they're asking, just give the answers. But that's not how things work. And unfortunately, when it comes to this, the process of washing the janazah, the way the person passes away, the people behave around that person, to washing the body and the janazah prayer, following the janazah and burying and the grave, and after that as well, there are many errors and cultural misconceptions and fabrications that have been put in place. Unfortunately, people do and follow without realizing that these acts can actually take you out of the fold of Islam. Major sins and bid'ah, innovations aside, these are all major anyways, we understand them. But they can actually take you out of the fold of Islam. And people don't realize. Such as when the person passing away, okay, starting from that point, and then we get to the grave itself as well, and the question. Screaming, shouting, tearing your clothes, as that person did at the time of the Rasul as well. And the Rasul was quick to say that I'm bereaved from this person. I am not from these people. So the people who shout and tear their clothes,
it's a competition,
and hit themselves, these are not from the ummah of Rasulullah. He has excluded them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his ummah because of these actions. These are not the actions of a believer. These are not the actions of the ummah of Rasulullah. We are happy and we're sad and we deal with death and we deal with everything in our life the way that our Prophet ﷺ told us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his book, and then the reflection on that with the companions and the ones afterwards from the 3 first generations. We don't go from that.
Correct.
Just because someone has died, that doesn't give you the option to just do whatever you want. There are barriers, boundaries of halal and haram that we have to adhere to. So the person, for example, passing away, then them keeping that dead body there, when Rasulullah has told us to hasten in the burial process, you're keeping it there for the people to grieve, for them to get together in a room and hiring a person to come and say emotional lines or poetry or what have you, as they do back home, unfortunately, and then just weeping, crying, screaming, shouting. Because people don't understand that this is our path. We all know we're going to go this way. So this is why we're only allowed to grieve for 3 days. Subhanallah. Only 3 days. Your mom, your dad, your son, your daughter, uncle, auntie, anyone, 3 days.
Of crying.
3 days, oh, you can be emotional, sad, cry, not in the mood, 3 days only.
And then you just go back to the world.
Then you need to understand 3 days, that 3 days being put there because we are human beings. We can't just say like, okay, get over it. He's passed away, no. We are human beings. Rasulullah ﷺ, when burying his young son Ibrahim, he was crying, he was weeping to show that we are human beings. We get emotional, we get distressed when a loved one passes away. That's why we'll be given 3 days. So this person now lying there, and people come and grieve, and they grieve and they cry and they shout, and this is not part of the Deen at all. You can cry, you can weep, you can be sad. These are allowed in our Deen. We're not saying that you're not allowed to be sad. There's a difference between being sad, hitting yourself and tearing your clothes. This is not sadness.
In our culture, there's a competition as well.
This is stupidity.
Correct. There's a competition as well. Who's crying the most? or who's feeling upset the most, who's got hurt the most.
Yeah,
The dead.
how is that part of the deen of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How is that part of the Sharia of Allah Azza wa Jal? Competing in who can cry the most, who can tear their clothes the most. And it's sad to see these cultural fabrications and lack of knowledge, ignorance. That's definitely got a role in this, in these actions of the people back home, especially.
What do you say to avoid these type of matters is to delay, don't put the body in front of people?
That's one way. I mean, in the religion itself, we have been told to hasten that burial process. So we're not supposed to keep that body there at all. You're supposed to do it quickly, and then washing that body has to be done in accordance to the Sharia and the way it's been told, where you do the ablution first, making sure that no one sees the aura. The dead person in Islam is respected and honored as a believer as if he's alive. As if he's alive. You can't see the aura. You can't cause the body distress, even though he's passed away, but he still has the haqq upon you, as if he's still alive. So that body is washed and then is shrouded in the cloth.
Right.
And obviously in these countries it's put in that box.
Yeah.
And then the janazah prayer is to be performed, where the mayyit is brought in front of the imam, and the imam then does 4 takbirat. And this, we get to another mistake of the people, a common mistake actually. After, obviously everyone knows how janazah prayer works, after the 3rd takbir you make the dua for the mayyit. This is the time where you make dua for the mayyit in your salatul janazah. And there are famous dua, Allahumma aghfir li hayyina wa mayitna wa shahidna wa ghabina. Or if you don't know those du'as, then Allahumma aghfir lahu, Allahumma arhamhu. May Allah forgive him, may Allah have mercy on him. And any other du'as that you know, you do that time. But the problem is when they finish the janazah and then the imam raises his hands again. Why are you raising your... You just made du'as. Your dua is supposed to be in the 3rd takbir, not after the whole salah again, you're raising your hands.
In the 3rd takbir, if you don't know any du'as, are they allowed to speak in English and do dua for the person who passed away? Is that sufficient as well or not?
If a person don't know the Arabic du'as, and there are differences of opinion in the matter, but it's safer to just keep it to Arabic. Allahumma aghfir lahu, Allahumma arhamhu. And then he himself, you can make dua for that person, or any person actually, alive or dead, at any point, anywhere. May Allah forgive him, may Allah have mercy on him, may Allah grant him Janazah Firdaus, and so on and so forth. You can do that, but a collective dua after the janazah prayer is not from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor the companions, nor the tabi'in, no one after them.
Right.
It's one of those innovations that have just come about from people doing it over time, and it's not part of our deen. And then when taking that mayyit, that dead person, to the graveyard and putting it in the grave, you lower it down slowly, and now obviously in these countries, because it's in a box, it has to be lowered with a lot of people holding ropes under. Usually they'll do that, so they hold the ropes on both sides and then lower it, and then one side lets go and then the other side they pull it out. So when lowering the body, before that obviously you don't even have to mention that you may keep making dua and you reflect on death, and you don't act in a stupid manner, and you should act in accordance to your surrounding. Some people, they actually make jokes, they crack jokes right there in the graveyard, they're laughing and joking, and you think, subhanAllah, the person has passed away. If you're not going to reflect here, then where are you going to reflect?
Correct.
So when you put that mayyit down, you say Bismillah wa ala millati Rasulillah, and you put that mayyit down, and then they start putting with the hands that soil, and then after that they get the rest of the soil, and then they cover it, and then that mayyit is buried. And then after that mayyit is buried, that dead person, you make dua for him. You can make dua standing over his grave, but to start speaking to that dead person, a lot of ulama say that the dead person can't even hear you.
And the grave can't as well.
They can't hear you at all. Yeah, the people may say that, what about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he mentions when you do salam, then I will hear you if you're in the masjid. But that's specific to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the other dua that you mentioned to when going to the graveyard, the cemeteries, Assalamu alaikum ya ahl al-diyar min al-muslimin wa inna insha'Allah bikum lahiqun. So peace be unto you, O people of the grave, and we will inshallah follow you very soon. We will follow behind you, and we will get to the same destination. So, speaking to the grave, or trying to have any communication, that dead person will not hear you.
This guy was claiming that he's helping the person who died by telling him the questions and telling him the answers.
No,
so that's obviously, please avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, we avoid that. We don't do that. We don't mention to the that dead person, because logically it doesn't make sense. Just sit down and think for yourself 1 minute. If a person has sinned his whole life, is he somehow gonna pass that because you're giving him the answers? Like, shh, bro, like I know the answers. I'm gonna give you them, and they are
gonna test.
And they're not like answers. The questions in the grave are just, who's your Lord? What's your religion, and who was the man sent to you? That prophet who was sent, who was that person? A righteous person would be able to answer those questions.
3 questions.
Again, reflecting his life and how he's been. And a person who hasn't been on track, then he would either say, I don't know, or he would mumble, he would get stuck, or he would say, I've heard that so-and-so came. So that person speaking to that grave, the dead person, the dead people, they can't hear us. So it is better to avoid that. We don't do that at all. That's not part of our religion. No one has ever done that. Go and start speaking, having conversation with the graves. So we leave that. That's not part of our deen.
Another thing, another misconception is people praying, doing dua and any direction around the grave as well.
Now, when you make du'as, is recommended to face the qibla, of course. But if you make dua and you just happen to face the grave, if you're not asking something from that dead person, you just say, oh Allah, forgive him, oh Allah, that's not a problem. Mm-hmm. The issue is when you try to ask that that dead person for a matter, as a lot of people do. They go to the qabr, even if it's the qabr of the pir or the qabr of the imam, they go and ask that person for help. And that is shirk. We are not allowed to do that. It takes you out of the fold of Islam. Or some people say, no, but we only ask for them to intercede on our behalf. They are pious people, and they would intercede on our behalf to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that He can forgive us. First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing and mercy, they're unlimited and so wide that you can raise your hand directly to Him. They don't need an intercession. In this dunya, right, when you're asking Him for forgiveness and mercy, and He is 70 times more merciful to you than your mother. So you don't need someone to intercede on your behalf. It's not that Allah doesn't have time for you, but if someone comes from the pious people, then maybe He'll think about forgiving you. He wants you. He's asking you, raise your hands, ask for forgiveness. I will forgive you even if your sins reach the skies, and I don't even care. وَلَا أُبَالِي, as He Himself mentions, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also, this intercession, reminds us of the aqidah of Quraysh. What was the belief and methodology of Quraysh? They believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Countless times in the Quran, we see when asked, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ. When they asked, people of Quraysh, kuffar, mushrikeen, when they asked, who created you? They say, Allah created us. Who created the heavens and the earth? Allah created them. Why did they have the idols in the first place? The idols were there to intercede. They were there to intercede on their behalf to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them to be forgiven. So if you do this, what's the difference between you and Quraysh now?
Correct.
They did it to idols, you're doing it to this person. You're the same as Quraysh. When you start saying that you need someone to intercede on your behalf.
Okay.
And then afterwards, when this person has been buried, like we said, you have 3 days. In that time, people should not visit this person expecting food to be made by him and his family.
That's a common
This is
thing.
a big no-no. Because these people are going through grief, sadness. They've just lost a family member, a loved one. And you go there expecting them to make food. If you go there to their house to share in their pain, condolences, and you take food to them, alhamdulillah, in that is reward.
SubhanAllah.
But when you go and expect them to make food for you, that's not allowed. We're not supposed to do that. That's one of the common mistakes that we actually think of it as normal back home. We're supposed to do that. The people who've lost a loved one, they're supposed to serve guests.
Here is no different. You know, you go to a lot of mosques around here, and like normally it's the first or second day of the burial, and the person whose family dies, they provide the food for. Normally it's outsiders who are coming away.
Yeah.
Like now out of city.
The masajid, those people, community, they should have a specific department, a sub-department rather, for this. So when someone has passed away, you have that ready, be it part of the fund or income of the masjid, to provide food for those people who come from far. Yeah, do it. It's good. It's good that you provide food, but don't put that on the family.
Okay.
Don't put that on those loved ones who just going through that hard time.
Correct.
So these are some of the mistakes when it comes to the someone dying, the process, the burial process, and afterwards, when a person has passed away, in our culture and our people, they have a 40-day grieving. I'm not sure if you guys have that.
It's the same scenario. Is I think there's 3. There's 4 after 4 days.
Our 40 days.
No, if ours is first 4 days.
Right.
I think then it's like 20 days and then it's 40 days.
Our
There's
one
3
is
can't remember the second one.
well, our one is 40 days. After 40 days, and then after a year. Yeah, I've heard the number of days could be a bit different, but as we mentioned before, the amount of days you're allowed to grieve, only 3 days. Even if it's your parent, only 3 days, because you know you're gonna pass away. Same way that person's passed away, your parents passed away, and the same way his parent passed away.
Right.
So
So you get 4 days, then 12, and it's 40 in our culture. And it's Hatam, they do it Hatam, they call it Hatam. So then...
Oh yeah, they do a Khatam as well. They try to do the Khatam of the Quran together. They give the sparas out. We do the same as well.
The same
Allah
culture.
musta'an. They get together, the Khatam will be at this time. Yeah, the part that some masajid do saying that if there are any outstanding debts or anyone that have been wronged by this person, forgive for the sake of Allah. But if you still want your share, then approach the closest relative, be it the son, brother, or father, or anyone. Or they will be in this masjid this time. So if you have any outstanding debts, then you may approach them in this time, this place. But to have the khatam and then getting everyone to finish the Quran together, these things should be avoided, as they were not the practices of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Innovation, then I take it.
We should avoid doing anything that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions didn't do. And it's simple. Anything that they didn't do, right? Okay. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and companions and tabi'een and the 4 imams, none of them, Abu Hanifa never mentioned this. Nowhere has it been mentioned by Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi that you have to do any of these actions. And these people, they are the ones who label people calling for following the Rasul and the companions and the tabi'in and the text the way they understood it. They call them gustakh. But in reality, these guys are the gustakh Rasul. And these guys are the gustakh of Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, because neither the Rasul nor the companions, the tabi'in, or the 4 imams, none of them, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, Ahmad, included any one of these actions in their fiqh. These came hundreds of years after.
Look at that, subhanAllah, how easy it is to go and do create innovations. Now, in your mind, you're thinking, you're reading Quran, what wrong is it? You know, like, that's how easy innovations come about, you know. Like, I remember growing up, we used to do this all the time. We used to, all cousins, and like now used to get together.
Yeah.
We used to read Quran for the person who passed away. And like, and you'll be thinking you're getting rewards because you're reading Quran. You won't be thinking that you're like now contributing towards an innovation.
Definitely. And this is why after trying to get you to do shirk, shaitan, the next step is not even major sins or minor sins or anything. He won't make you do zina first. He won't try to make you cheat. He won't try to make you steal. He won't try. The first thing before those things he'll try is to make you read that Quran with those people. Even though it seems like a noble thing to do, but they don't realize that what they're doing is an innovation that's rejected. Anything that you do that's not part of the Sharia of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is rejected.
Correct.
So you go through all that effort and then it's all in vain and it's rejected. And it seems like such a noble thing to do. I mean, getting together with like your family and doing a khatam of the Quran, finishing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making collective du'as, going and talking to the qabr and telling him and everything. It may seem, apart from the last one, they may seem like a
noble
thing, a good thing to do, but in reality, they are far from it, and they're from the innovations of the Deen that we ought to abstain from at any cost.
Inshallah. Another misconception is about taking the body back home. Do your culture do it as well?
Yeah, they do that.
So and then they go ahead and bury it in the family graveyard. Is that the same thing as well?
Yeah, they do. Really, the person who is passing away, usually he would maybe have like a will where he'd say that I want to be buried back home or in Islamic country and everything. And if that is the case, then people around would try to get them back.
So it's good. So you have to do that if they've said that.
If they say you try to do it. You try to get that person according to the will, because the will is very important. The wasiyah of that person, unless it's clashing with Quran and Sunnah, is very important, paramount to follow to the T. So if he has specifically mentioned being buried back home in an Islamic country, or buried in a specific way, bearing in mind it doesn't go against the Sharia, then they should be followed. We should try to follow them. However, generally speaking, the companions of Rasulullah ﷺ and the ones afterwards, they went to all lands east and west to promote and give da'wah to the non-believers, and also through jihad fi sabilillah at the time. So when they passed away, there are no records of them saying that I want to be sent back to Medina to be buried there. Yeah, fair enough, it literally wouldn't be possible because it takes months to get back to Medina. But there are no narrations or no record of them doing so. So having said that, this doesn't mean that it's haram, that you can't mention that in your will. You should have a will, and if that is really what you want, there are some people who really want to be buried in Medina. If you really want to be buried somewhere, then make that dua and keep it in mind at all times, not only where you want to be buried, but the way you want to pass away, the way you want to die. Make dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make that happen. And we've seen many stories of that. People who really, from their heart, sincerely wanted to die in a certain place, in a certain way, and that's the way that they passed away. SubhanAllah.
So in regards to if I was to my mom or my dad wanted to now they say verbally now they say, okay, I want to be buried back home, and then it's my duty then to fulfill it, then, isn't it?
You try your best to fulfill that, inshallah. But they should realize that it's not easy, and it's expensive. One of my friends mentioned it's very expensive to die in this country.
No, but you have committees in place, though.
I know you do.
That death committee. Do you guys have that as well? I bet.
Yeah, there are many committees like that. They come together. They have a Janazah fund.
Yeah.
And they come together. Anyone pass away, that fund will be given to them, aiding them in the way they want to be buried and location. So, but dying in general is expensive. But my friend said, even if it's expensive, I don't have to pay for it. If I'm not passing away, I don't have to pay for it.
There's a guy who I've got an office with, opposite, and that's his business, is planned funerals, pre-planned funerals.
Okay, subhanAllah.
So you're planning your funeral before you die, and you're paying towards it, and then all expense. So then it's a way the people who don't have a death committee in place is something good for them, because then they're not giving the burden to their family. Yeah. So then like you said, it costs a lot of money, like 95, 7, 10 grand, and it could cost more depending on obviously the type of cemetery it is and the land. That's what you're paying for, the land to get buried in.
And now that you mentioned the type of cemetery and the type of burial, some people I've seen their grave and the way they be buried, it literally looks like a 5-star hotel or like a temple. And this is not part of our deen. We should try our best to avoid even the gravestones, having flowers, taking flowers, and those little what are they calling it? The ones that you blow and they start.
Or them LED nowadays it's like LED lights and then flowers.
These are the actions of the kuffar that we shouldn't imitate. We don't bring flowers. We can go to the graveyard. You make dua for that person. That's what will help the person.
So you're basically saying keep it flat. Keep the grave.
It's not going to be flat
as much as possible.
It's not going to be flat. Obviously, when you
over time
it's going to be like a mound there. And in a lot of cemeteries, especially here, the minimum they'll do is they put like a little, just a stick with like a number or like a little name there,
with a name
so you know where it is.
Yeah, with a name.
People will say that no, I want to know where it is. I don't want it to be. I don't want it to disappear. But making it in that way, spending so much money making it into like a mini temple is not part of our deen, and no one has ever done that. Or making it, I've seen like massive big cages. I'm saying that we don't want it to disappear and go away, but there are other ways of doing that without going overboard like that.
So basically, normally they're all made from marbles, aren't they? And then they just funeral services for providing
marble
that.
and those the green. It looks like gemstones. Just the way that they do. Some people do. They make it into like a little temple, and you got the stones.
It looks good. Subhanallah, it does look good.
It looks good.
Like with the LED lights, proper.
When we make dua, you should come and make dua that what's in this grave looks good, not what's on top of the grave.
Correct.
Because that's not going to do anything, not going to benefit the person that's in the grave. All you're doing is you're stacking your sins. Because unless the person in the grave asks for that, you're the one who went out of your way, going overboard and doing something that's not part of the Sharia. So you're stacking your sins when you think you're doing something good. Again, like you said, people do good, they think they're doing good, but they end up shooting themselves in the foot.
So if someone's grave has been made now and then like that, like with marble and everything, now what do you do? Like if your parents, for example, have passed away and like at your jahiliyyah you did that at that time, right? Now that you know that that's wrong, then would you just get it demolished? What's your take on
that? Sometimes demolishing it or removing it may cause bigger problems in the family, fitna, and other issues. So person shouldn't hasten this. Yeah, it is better to have that removed, of course. However, don't rush into doing it. Even now that you understood that this is wrong and it shouldn't be like this, and I've turned back to Allah Azza wa Jal, at the same time, don't create bigger problems because of that. Make sure that there are no issues with the family. Maybe there's someone closer to that person than you. Like for example, if you're the son and that's your mom, but your dad's still alive, and you go trying to do that when your dad is still alive and he's closer to your mom than you'll ever be as a spouse, in that sense, yani. So obviously in that way you consult with your dad and with family and you see what they say and you try to do as much as possible. Try to reach a compromise, try to find a way to, if not remove it completely, making it less overboard, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
Okay, Jazakallah for that advice. Now, regards to when a body dies, like has left the soul, and you've gone ahead and buried it, and you've answered you've been asked the question.
So the scene goes back to this dead person now. Now, outside is finished.
Outside is finished.
Yeah.
Alas.
Yeah, that part is done. Alhamdulillah. The dead person, as we mentioned, when approaching the grave, if a good person, he'll try to make the people go faster, put him in that grave quickly because he sees what's there. And then the opposite is the case when there's an evildoer, a wretched soul, who will see punishment and fire and torment, and he will beg them to stop. And the screams and beggings of the dead person, everyone can hear except us and the jinn. We can't hear them. So everyone else, all the animals, everyone, they can hear that dead person, but we can't. So the dead person is put into the grave, and the two angels will appear, Munkar and Nakir. Two angels will appear, and for the wretched soul, they will be right above him. with scary, ugly faces. They will already scare you. They will ask you those questions, and then when that person fails, they will open the window into Jannah, saying that this is basically what you missed out on. You missed out on getting to this destination. And then they'll open the window of Jahannam, saying that this will be your place in Yawm al-Qiyamah. And your grave will squeeze you. The grave squeezes everyone. Every single person going to the grave will be squeezed until your shoulder bones, they come into contact.
Is that good or bad? Like if
it's a good person, then it's kind of like a hug from the earth that, oh, finally you've returned to me.
Uh-huh.
And if it's a bad person, it's a torment, it's an adhab, because of being such an evil person, a bad person. And this person would be in torment, in adhab. He'll be hit. He will kind of be like a dungeon from Jahannam in his qabr, in his grave. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. And then the flip side is a person, a believer, who has entered the grave, and the Nakir and Munkar, the two angels, will try to get close to the body, but the actions of this person, the Quran and the Salah and the Siyam and the prayer and the fasting and those righteous actions will come in human forms, and surround him and protect him, not letting those two getting too close to him. Because when you're somewhere and then suddenly you see two people right above you, you get shook. You're gonna get scared. So these two have to ask from a bit of a distance. Then when you answer them, then they will show you Jahannam, saying that this would have been your destination.
And you still get to see Jahannam.
You still get to see it. This would have been your destination if you were a wretched soul. But now, showing you Jannah, this will be your place and destination on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And then the qabr itself will be widened, and it will become from the gardens of Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those people.
Ameen.
And the wretched person will keep making dua, oh Allah, don't let the hour come. Oh Allah, don't let the hour come, because they know what's waiting for them is worse. And then the believer would ask for the day of judgment to come as soon as possible.
And then, so what will happen? So whilst you're waiting, so that's it. Now you're just waiting for day of judgment. Then,
yeah, a good person. There are narrations mentioning that the person will be able to be in the barzakh, which is like kind of like a waiting area zone, where you'd be able to meet other souls who have passed away, and they'll see you, they'll greet you from your family and loved ones who passed away before you, and they start asking you questions, how's so-and-so, how's he doing, how's that doing, and then others would say, leave him alone, he just come, like let him rest a bit, let him just like take this in that khalas, I passed away, leave him alone. So you'll be able to be with those souls in the barzakh, awaiting the hour.
Is that where the Prophet is as well?
They could be. But it is mentioned in narration that the prophets are in their graves worshipping. But at the same time, their souls have been mentioned to be in the seven heavens. Like when Rasulullah ﷺ went up through the seven heavens, Isra al-Mi'raj, he saw the prophets at all the levels, first heaven, second, all the way to seventh, where he saw Ibrahim ﷺ just leaning on Bayt al-Ma'mur.
So they're in the heavens waiting for, obviously, the doors of Jannah to open, right?
I mean, they're waiting for the hour.
Yeah,
so that's where the good person and the bad person would be, waiting for that hour to be established.
MashaAllah. That's anything else we need to know about this topic, Sheikh? I've asked as much as I could.
I mean, death is something that should be kept in mind at all times. Now, anyone who listens to this may just reflect on death for the time being, listening to this, and maybe a bit afterwards as well. But just to keep on track, it really helps when you keep death in mind. That now that, for example, when I'm sleeping, I may not wake up. Pray this salah. This is why we're told to pray every salah as if it's our last one, because it literally could be our last one. Now, stand for salah and just imagine just one salah. It could be any. And say, okay, if I pass away right after this salah, if I know I'm going to pass away after I've prayed, how would I pray this prayer? Pray like that and watch. Watch the change in your khushu' and khudu', the concentration in your salah, the awareness of you standing in front of your Lord Azza wa Jal. Just by you remembering death, just by you knowing that your time is limited. And there are stories of people who've been so close to death, but then realizing that it's actually happening, it could happen, they sort of wake up for a few seconds. We're all asleep because we've forgotten death and where we're heading, our final destination. But some people who've got like a near death encounter, they'll be able to tell you that those few seconds, those are seconds that I actually woke up and I realized that I'm not ready to die. I'm not ready to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with what I've done, with what I've put forward in my life. So that's why it's been emphasized so much that we should always remember death. And if we can't, then try to go once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, once every 2 months to the graveyard, to the cemetery. Even if you don't have anyone there, just go to the Muslim graveyard and not only go there, go to the section of people who got the same date of birth as you.
How would you find that out?
You know the placement of the people based on the year that they passed away. Mm-hmm. So going in a certain direction makes it go backwards.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you'll be able to find that. There are like sections for like younger people and adults. I mean, cemeteries obviously they will be different from cemetery to cemetery, but generally that's the idea. So,
but Muslim graveyard you're recommending to go to?
Yeah, don't go and visit.
Because here in Leeds, like now there are not that many Muslim graveyards.
Yeah. Right,
but like now, like will be my like yeah. That's the problem.
I mean, you try your best.
Mm-hmm.
You try your best to visit that graveyard, that cemetery. If it's a mixed one, obviously there's not going to be complete mix,
mm-hmm.
but it's going to be like a section for the Muslims, and that's where you go. Even if you have to pass by the non-Muslim ones, the kuffar, then it's necessary. But if you don't have to, one should avoid going to the places where people are being punished. It's one of those very serious topics that you can't really joke around about.
Mm.
And it does affect you. I know that I once went to a cemetery with one of the brothers, and we went there for a specific purpose. And then when leaving, we saw this empty grave. It'd been dug out in preparation for a mayyit coming, a dead body. So they put like this piece of wood on top of it. So we moved it to the side. Obviously it was an empty grave. So I thought, you know what? Let's go down. Let's go down into this grave. So I did, and I told this brother, like, move the wood on top of it again. So I'm just like sitting down inside the grave, and he put the wood like on top of it, daytime. So it wasn't like completely pitch black, but it was dark. And when looking around, all you see is like insects and dirt and soil, thinking that we fight over this world. We run around trying to get the biggest house, the best car, more and more money, and then this is where we end up. So
you probably experienced it then, didn't you?
It really shakes you. The brother actually asked me many times, are you sure you want me to put that piece of wood on top? I'm like, yeah, just do it, I want to. I've seen people do that, and I just want to experience what that's like. So I just decided to do it, and I would recommend for people to do that. There are actually people advising, some mashayikh as well, to have like a piece of cloth, like a massive one, and wrap yourself around and imagine that that's what they're gonna shroud you in.
I think you might have given someone a business idea.
Nah, you're gonna lose out on that business. You're not gonna get much profit. Most people are not gonna be interested in buying their own kafan while they're alive.
No, but a lot of people, you know, when they go to do Hajj, they keep their ihrams, so then they're going to use that as a coffin.
The ihram is not going to be sufficient for what's needed for a kafan.
Correct.
And it doesn't really make a difference if you use that kafan or a normal piece of cloth. Honestly speaking, I haven't heard about that myself personally. But if people decide to do that, I could see that people.
I think my granddad, they used it. He wrote in his will he wanted it, and he always, wherever he went, he took it with him. It's Pakistan or here.
Oh, okay.
He always had that with him.
If it's just a piece of cloth like like the ihram, and there shouldn't really be a problem using that, because the ihram usually is quite massive.
Right.
Using that. However, it still wouldn't be enough. For it could be part of the cloth that's used to the shrouding the person.
Yeah.
And as the kafan, but it wouldn't be sufficient on its own.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine. Any last advice for our Deen Seeker viewers?
Well, all we've been saying in conclusion right now will just advise us to always keep death in mind. It's difficult, it's challenging, and most of the time you won't be able to remind yourself of death. So go on YouTube and go through those reminders, the reminders about death. And we need Iman reminders, because Iman goes up and down.
Right.
At times we feel so motivated, we want to just do everything. We want to become ulama in a week. But then at times we barely get up to pray the salah at home. So Iman goes up and down. We need Iman reminders. And definitely one of the best reminders is the reminder of death, that your ultimate destination. You're working so hard for this life, but then knowing where you're going, where you're heading to, and you also being aware how fast the days are passing, the weeks, Jum'ah, and the next Jum'ah, and the next Jum'ah, then the month, and the next month, and we're in August now. We're in mid-August already.
Time just passes away so quick.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So keep in mind that we are but a number of days. We are made up of a number of days. Every single day that passes, that's a part of you taken away. And you'll get one step closer, one day closer to that qabr, that grave that you just witnessed your friend being buried in.
SubhanAllah. Such a good reminder. Well, Jazakallah khair for your time today.
Barakallah
Really
feek.
appreciate it.
Jazakumullah khair.
And may Allah Ta'ala forgive us for any wrongdoing and accept it for anything
Ameen.
that comes good from us. Ameen. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah feek.